They're common because they're so easy to fall into. And they're common because I see them even in published memoirs. Let's take a look, see what we can learn from them and what we can do to make our memoirs better. Memoir mistake number 1, trying to cover too much. This is a classic memoir mistake. We want to put everything we know about our lives into our story, every memory, every recollection, every person, and it's too much. The problem with this is, 1, we lose a theme, we lose a focus for our memoir, and it becomes this hodgepodge of recollections that are really important to you, but honestly, they're not that important to anybody else. Problem number 2 is it becomes cluttered, and because it's cluttered, the reader doesn't know where you're going. You need to develop rapport with the reader. The reader needs to trust that you know where you're going, even if they don't really know at the first where you're off to. They trust that you do, and they're going to follow you. As they start reading your memoir, if it becomes just this recollection of a bit of this and a bit of that, they're going to close the book. They're going to cotton on pretty quickly that you're just put out in front of them all your personal memories that they actually aren't interested in, and there's not much in this book for them. They're going to shut the book and move on, or do what I do when I come across memoirs like this. And I did recently come across a memoir like this, a published memoir by quite a well-known person. I skim read it. I thought, oh no, really? How did this get published? And I skim read the book. So you don't want to do that. You don't want to put in too many memories of too many things that become cluttered. You want to have a focus, you want to have a theme. So if you haven't seen my video yet on themes and how to discover the theme for your memoir and theme in memoir, do watch this video. It will help you a lot in focusing and honing the theme in your book. Mistake number 2 memoir writers make: thinking that only the juicy bits count in your life. It's not true. They are important, and that's probably why you're writing your memoir, is that there's something difficult, something exciting, something life-transforming, good or bad, that has happened in your life. And so you sometimes think that the ordinary things of your life, the day-to-day things, the routines you had when you were growing up, or routines you even have now in your life, don't count for much. They do, and this is why. The ordinary and the mundane is really the fabric of your story. It's where the rest of your story lies, is in developing this whole story and the scene of what your ordinary life is like. Now, it may be boring to you to think back on where you grew up, what your life was like, because it's what you know. But to the reader who wants to escape, who wants to go somewhere else, they're so intrigued by the ordinariness of your life, about the culture you grew up in, the habits you had, the things you did. Yes, those pivotal moments are important, but you need the fabric of your everyday life to support those happenings. Here is an example. I was reading a travel memoir. It was set in the south of France. The author and his wife were traveling in the south of France and sharing their experience. The author is a good writer, I could tell that. The story was interesting, a little mechanical. There was an element of it trying too hard, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. It was moving along. I was pushing through. I was trusting him, but well, you can tell it just wasn't working for me. I was trying to try articulate it to you. That's exactly how my experience was of reading the book. It was stop, start, and I wasn't really engrossed in the story. Until in telling his story, he referred back to a memory he had of growing up poor in the East End of London. He remembered how the family would take the zinc wash tub out into the courtyard off their kitchen every Saturday, fill it with hot water, and they would take turns having a bath. That was really all he shared. But the minute he shared it, I sat up. I looked at the book and I said, this is the story he needs to be telling. This is the story he should be writing. Not the one set in the south of France, not yet anyway, where his voice is not yet authentic. It's not yet real. It feels put on. What he needs is to tap into his authentic voice, which is all in those little details of his memory of growing up in the East End of London. The ordinary details that for him are perhaps boring, maybe even a little embarrassing. That is where his story needs to start. And then he could develop a right until what brings him to be someone who now holidays in the south of France. But that is what we're looking for. We want the authenticity of our voice, and it's in those little details, not necessarily in the juicy, pivotal bits. And that is where the reader resonates with you. Memoir mistake number 3, not reading your genre, not reading memoirs. If you're writing a memoir, one of the best pieces of advice for you is to read memoir. So do me a favor, down below in the comments, list the 5 memoirs you have read within the last year. Any 5. If you haven't read 5 memoirs in the last year and you intend writing a memoir, or you are already writing a memoir, I will recommend that you go and get a memoir to read, and you start a reading list of memoirs and you start to read memoir. It will enrich your writing immensely when you read the genre in which you are writing. This is why you will read different types of memoir. You will read memoir that are in a similar vein to what you're writing, and you will pick up innate ways in which the memoirist writes, what the author does, how they describe things, the pace. If you're reading memoir, you will innately pick it up because you're steeped in memoir. If you're not reading memoir, you're missing out on this richness. It's like speaking a language where you're immersed in the language. You can either learn it pedantically on your own, or you go and live somewhere and you're immersed in the language. Before you know, you're picking up the words, you're picking up understanding, you're picking up intonation, tone, pace, and your ability to speak the language improves greatly and you sound more like a native. It's the same thing with writing memoir. When you read memoir, you're immersed in it, you innately pick up things that you need to know. The other thing is you will start to be able to discern a good memoir from a not so good memoir, a well-written memoir from a poorly written memoir. And that is what you're looking for. When you can start to say, this one's well written, this one isn't, and you know why, you know that you really be able to enrich your own writing from that experience. So do list your 5 memoirs and do read in your genre. So those are 3 common writing mistakes memoir writers make. If you haven't already got it, do download my free 7 key ingredients to writing a great memoir, one that others will want to read. I'll see you in my next video as we learn how to write a memoir.